It began with an ear-piercing screech, the sharp wheels of a heavy suitcase dragging across smooth stone floors. The sound sliced through the serene atmosphere like a blade through silk. Conversations paused, heads turned. Even the breeze seemed to freeze, like the world itself sensed something unsettling had arrived. Not a thing. People. 4 tourists entered Ocean Crest Retreat, each step exuding the kind of boldness that announced they believed the place belonged to them. Their presence rolled in like an unexpected storm. Ocean Crest was hidden along the quiet shores of Sundale Bay, tucked between tall groves of whispering palms and the shimmering curve of the azure coastline. The land here told ancient stories, ones whispered through ocean mist and woven into bonfire songs. That afternoon, the breeze carried traces of spiced mango, roasted coconut, and the heady perfume of jasmine in bloom. The air clung warmly to the skin like steam from a clay pot, thick with humidity yet sweet to breathe. But these newcomers walked through it like it was just another setting in a photo shoot. The one in front was impossible to miss. He wore a canary yellow shirt left half open, paired with spotless ivory slacks that looked like they'd never met dust. His hair, a thick, slicked-back blonde crest, was perfectly styled, and every flick of his wrist sent golden flashes from an expensive watch. His sandals slapped the floor like the rhythm of command. Trailing him were his companions, a wiry man with silver aviators and a half-buttoned floral shirt, a pale woman with a sculpted jawline and a stare sharp enough to cut glass, and another with glossy lips and an enormous hat, angled just right to suggest mystery. None of them acknowledged the doorman. None paused to admire the grand entrance, where detailed paintings of sky spirits and river guardians decorated the high arch. They passed through as if it were wallpaper. Inside, the lobby stretched open like the inside of a drum-cool earthen. Walls brushed with tones of burnt orange and mahogany. Lanterns crafted from reed and glass hung like stars from the ceiling, casting soft amber light across a centerpiece fountain that whispered as it circled a twisted fig tree sprouting right through the stone. Ocean Crest wasn't merely a resort. It was legacy wrapped in luxury. A place built from generations of hard work, echoing the pulse of old island traditions and graceful hospitality. A 5-star sanctuary, not only in service but in soul. Among the staff was Elena Moore, a woman whose poise could quiet a room. Dressed in the retreat's flowing indigo sash, she moved with intention, her posture proud and steps precise. Her cocoa-brown skin shimmered in the setting sun, and her braids were gathered into a low bun held by a polished wooden pin. Regular guests always asked for Elena. She carried an air of calm that could cool tempers, her presence like shade under a wide tree. She was the kind of person who made silence feel like a gift. As the 4 guests strode forward like they were entering a runway, the receptionist glanced at Elena, offering a discreet signal. Elena approached, calm as a rising tide. Her expression was kind but unreadable, her voice smooth. "Good evening. Welcome to Ocean Crest. May I guide you to a special spot by the lagoon?" The blond man squinted, scanning the surroundings, then turned to his group. "We want the top spot," he said with a tone that sounded more like a demand than a request. "You know, premium view, big cushions, no crowds." His voice didn't ask, it expected. Elena nodded, unfazed. She gestured toward a pathway wrapped in flowering vines and flanked by torches carved with ancestral symbols. At its end waited the Lagoon Cabana's exclusive spaces reserved for high-tier guests, usually booked far in advance. But money could twist schedules, and these guests knew it. They followed her. The man dropped into the biggest seat like he was claiming it, stretching out with a smug sigh. The sharp-faced woman sat beside him, casting a gaze at Elena that lingered too long. As Elena placed hand-bound menus on the table, crafted from soft bamboo paper, the woman exhaled dramatically. You sure you can walk us through this? We don't want anything mixed up, she said with a tilt of her head and a sugar-sweet voice that carried thorns. The question wasn't really about the menu, it was a test. A way to measure Elena. Elena met her tone with soft dignity. She'd heard it before. People assuming service meant submission, that a uniform erased identity. But she carried herself with rooted grace. The blond man tapped his menu with a polished nail. So, what should we order? I mean, you eat this stuff, right? Be honest. The smirk didn't quite hide the challenge. He wasn't asking for a recommendation. He was asking if she belonged in a place like this. Elena answered evenly. A favorite is our ocean harvest board, seared snapper, flame-roasted crab claws, and garlic prawns marinated in island chili. Oil. Everything was caught early this morning. The woman beside him, now clearly named Sienna by her companions, laughed with mock surprise. Seafood? Isn't that like local grub? Not really fine dining. She giggled, elbowing the man, who grinned. Their laughter stuck to the air like smoke. Other guests nearby shifted subtly, watching, but saying nothing. In places like this, arrogance was often left unchecked. Still, Elena stood calmly, notepad in hand, spine unbent. She understood what this night would be. A performance of patience. A silent trial of endurance and pride. Their voices grew louder, laughter sharper. But Elena didn't flinch, and the curtain had only just risen. Elena had learned something long ago in this business. Respect wasn't handed out like cutlery at a table. You had to earn it, carve it out, and sometimes claim it with nothing but calm resolve and a steel spine. Tonight, she could feel it in her bones. This was one of those nights. As the group lounged deeper into their cushioned cabana seats, their energy shifted from arrogant arrival to dismissive amusement. Menus in hand, they flipped through the pages with exaggerated boredom, muttering loud enough for nearby tables to hear. They weren't looking for suggestions, they were inviting. A spectacle. The man in the yellow shirt, whom Elena now privately dubbed Logan, leaned in with a smirk that curled like smoke. So, he said, his voice oozing mock interest, what's the fanciest drink you've got? I mean the real top-shelf stuff, something with fireworks. The others chuckled, exchanging glances like schoolchildren, daring each other to be cruel. Elena had seen this pattern before. It wasn't curiosity, it was a game. She kept her posture firm, letting the silence breathe before replying. We have a few signature options, she said. Our barrel-aged island whiskey 18 years matured, a rare vintage brandy from 1942, and a handcrafted cocktail with wild herbs and native flowers, mixed fresh at the bar. A woman named Sienna tilted her head and narrowed her eyes, her tone syrupy but cold. Sure, but do you actually drink this stuff? Or are you just reading from a script they drilled into you? The group snickered. Another man, Ethan, added, Come on, be real. You probably go home and crack open something cheap, right? Elena's jaw flexed slightly, but her face remained composed. She'd heard this before too. This wasn't about drinks. This was about proving their imagined superiority, feeding on the idea that someone like her couldn't truly understand refinement. She met Logan's gaze and replied, gently but firmly, It's a fair question, but the worth of a drink isn't in its label. It's in the care behind its creation, the story it carries, and how it's shared. Logan let out a mocking chuckle. Yeah, sure. Just bring us something strong, something that'll make us feel like royalty. But don't overthink it, all right? Elena gave a slow nod and turned toward the bar, her footsteps steady. Behind the counter, the bartender raised an eyebrow. Want me to step in? No, she said quietly. I've got this. As the warm light of the bar wrapped around her, Elena pulled together ingredients with precise hands. She reached for aged spirits, muddled herbs, citrus peels, and honeyed spice from the local market. Each element measured, each pour deliberate. She didn't just build drinks, she told stories in a glass. Moments later, she returned, placing the polished tumblers before them with practiced elegance. The drinks shimmered under the golden hour. Light, their layered colors glowing like melted gemstones. Logan took a dramatic sip and coughed like a child tasting ginger. He shoved the glass back like it had offended him. What is this? A science experiment gone wrong? Sienna lifted her glass and feigned a gasp. Did you just toss every expensive thing you had into one shaker and hope for magic? Ethan sniffed his drink, his nose wrinkling with theatrical distaste. It's giving. Overly handcrafted disaster, like someone trying too hard to impress. Their laughter burst out loud, drawing glances from nearby guests. The unspoken message couldn't have been clearer. The drinks, and by extension Elena, were just a joke to them. Elena's lips tightened, almost imperceptibly. She knew this script well. Step 1. Pretend interest. Step 2. Ridicule the service. Step 3. Turn the staff into the evening's entertainment. But she wasn't playing along. Logan picked up his glass again, squinting at it like it was a riddle he didn't care to solve. His tone shifted into open challenge. Seriously, though. Be honest, you really drink this stuff? Or are you just reciting someone else's words? Elena didn't blink. I've tasted everything I serve here, she replied. Her voice was even, but anchored with quiet strength. But what matters more is that I understand it. That's what brings meaning to the experience. Her answer hung in the air longer than any of their jeers. And suddenly, their laughter didn't land as easily. Sienna looked toward Logan and whispered something. He nodded slowly, still gripping the edge of the table, still wearing that smirk, but it didn't quite reach his eyes anymore. Ethan glanced away. For the first time, silence edged into their corner of the cabana. Elena didn't gloat. She didn't need to. She'd passed the test they didn't know she was taking, and she wasn't done yet. Sienna turned back toward Elena, her tone shifting to a sugar-coated mockery. Oh, don't take it so personally. We're just having some fun, that's all. Ethan chimed in with a smirk. Yeah, lighten up. It's just jokes, you know. Elena didn't respond right away. She tilted her head slightly, her eyes sweeping across each face, calm but piercing. Their laughter wasn't about the drinks anymore, it was about her. They were testing her patience, pushing for a reaction. Instead, she gave them a slow, deliberate smile, one they hadn't expected. You're right, she said, her voice soft, but layered. Maybe I am taking things too seriously. Let's loosen up a bit. Let's have some fun. The group perked up instantly. Logan's grin returned, broader now, confident. That's more like it, he said. But he had no idea what was coming. The moment held a breath between waves. Elena leaned in ever so slightly, her tone dropping just enough to draw them in. You know what I find interesting? She began, looking right at Logan. You all seem so focused on price tags and appearances. But has it ever crossed your mind what it really means to value something? Logan arched an eyebrow, the grin slipping just an inch. What do you mean? Her smile never wavered. Luxury isn't just about throwing money at something. It's about appreciating the intention behind it, the tradition, the skill. It's about understanding the people who make it possible. Her words floated over the table, not loud, but full of weight. Sienna shifted in her seat. Ethan's smile grew forced. Elena continued, her voice unwavering. The person you're talking to isn't just someone who serves drinks. My family built Ocean Crest from the ground up. My father started behind the bar, learning every detail, every recipe, every custom. Through years of dedication and care, he created this place. Brick by brick, table by table. Her gaze moved slowly across the group. So if you think this experience is just about what's in your glass, or how much it costs, then you've missed the point entirely. It's about respect for the process, for the people, for the history that brought you here. The cabana fell silent. Even the background music seemed to fade beneath the weight of her voice. Logan's smirk faded completely. His fingers gripped the edge of the table, now not with pride, but with uncertainty. Sienna looked down, mouth slightly parted. Ethan cleared his throat, but said nothing. Around them, other guests were watching. Now their earlier indifference replaced by quiet awareness. The energy in the air had shifted. Elena stood taller, calmly adjusting the folds of her sash. If you didn't enjoy the drink or the message, that's okay. Sometimes it takes a little time to really understand. Her words weren't harsh. They were an invitation and a challenge. The silence held, long and telling. Finally, Logan broke it with an awkward chuckle. The arrogance had drained from his voice. Well, that's something. Didn't expect to get a speech with our order. Elena smiled, but her eyes didn't soften. I'm not here to perform. The group shifted uncomfortably. The distance between them and Elena now felt immeasurable. The sun outside dipped lower, casting streaks of gold and violet across the sky. A truth had settled over Ocean Crest, a quiet but unmistakable reckoning. Elena hadn't raised her voice, hadn't delivered threats, but she'd shaken their foundation. And in doing so, she reclaimed not just her voice, but a legacy too long dismissed. The air around the cabana changed thick with something heavy, unseen, but undeniable. The once confident group now sat unusually quiet, their laughter gone, their bravado slipping like water draining from a cracked shell. Elena stood calmly nearby, not gloating, just steady. She knew this moment wasn't the end, it was the beginning of the true test. Then came the sound of footsteps measured, firm. A senior manager approached the cabana with quiet authority. With a respectful nod to Elena, he turned to the group. Good evening, he said smoothly. Just so you're aware, your drinks tonight have been taken care of by the management. Consider it a gesture of goodwill and reflection. He set a slim envelope on the table. Logan reached for it, hesitated, then opened it. The bill was marked 0. Beneath it, a handwritten note. Respect is the foundation of every experience here. We hope tonight has given you something to think about. Sienna leaned in, voice barely a breath. Wait, who owns this place again? Before Logan could respond, Elena answered softly but clearly. You met him earlier. He was in the VIP lounge. The man you walked past without looking. My father. Her words landed like a quiet thunderclap. The group froze. Logan's lips parted, but no words came. The gap between the image they had crafted of themselves and the reality now facing them was too wide to cross. Across the terrace, staff watched from a distance, discreet but aware. They exchanged small glances, subtle nods. At nearby tables, guests murmured, sensing something important had unfolded. A shift, a reckoning. Moments later, the manager returned this time with the head of guest relations. His expression was polite, but resolute. We want to thank you for visiting, he said, addressing the group. However, due to your conduct and disregard for the values we hold, we must inform you that Ocean Crest will not be able to accommodate you in the future. The message was clean and final. Respect wasn't optional. Logan's jaw clenched. Sienna stared at the table. Ethan's smugness had evaporated. And for the first time that evening, they felt the full weight of accountability. Not shouted at, not embarrassed, just ... seen. To ensure it wouldn't happen again. The resort's policy was made crystal clear. No staff would ever be obligated to serve anyone who showed prejudice or disrespect. The standard was not luxury, it was dignity. Elena watched them gather their things, shoulders slouched, heads lowered. Their energy had dimmed, stripped of entitlement. What they thought was control had dissolved in the face of grace. They didn't Understand. As they left, she turned quietly back to her duties. Around her, staff greeted her with soft nods, small smiles, a shared sense of pride. She felt none of the bitterness such moments often carry, only a renewed clarity. The night crept deeper into Ocean Crest, and with it came a subtle but undeniable shift in the air. The light chatter in the dining hall returned, but the undercurrent had changed. Something had settled among the guests and staff, a shared sense of something meaningful. Elena moved gracefully between tables, her presence calm and centered. She no longer needed words to command respect. It clung to her like a second skin. The quiet reverence with which her colleagues now met her, the nods, the softened glances, all spoke to the moment they had just witnessed. Elena hadn't raised her voice, hadn't demanded attention, she had simply stood firm. And in doing so, she had reminded everyone of what true strength looked like. The earlier incident had echoed through every corner of the resort. Staff whispered about it in the kitchen, in hushed awe. Guests who had seen the exchange now watched her with a deeper sense of admiration. It wasn't just about one woman standing tall, it was about a standard being reclaimed. As for the tourists who had swaggered in with loud voices and louder egos, they were no longer at the center of attention. They moved along the fringes, now shadows of their former selves. Word of their expulsion had spread quickly, and so had the lesson it carried. Money might get you in the door, but it wouldn't buy you belonging. Their expressions were pale, drained of all their earlier confidence. Where once they had drawn curious glances for their boldness, now they drew only quiet disapproval. And in that silence, the consequences of their actions spoke louder than any reprimand ever could. Later that night, back in her private quarters, Elena sat on the edge of her window, the breeze lifting the curtain gently behind her. The events of the evening played back in her mind, not with bitterness, but with clarity. She knew this journey wasn't easy. People like her, in places like this, often had to work twice as hard just to be seen as equals. But tonight had proved something, not just to them, but to herself. Respect wasn't something you begged for. It was something you built, one quiet, unwavering choice at a time. Ocean Crest remained what it had always been, a place of beauty, of luxury. But now its soul felt stronger, reinforced not by gold or grand gestures, but by its values. The kind you couldn't fake, the kind you had to live. Guests would come and go. Some would remember the sunsets, others the service. But tonight, everyone who was there would carry something deeper, the memory of a woman who stood her ground not with outrage, but with grace. Her fight wasn't over. The world still had its blind spots, but this night had planted something firm and rooted and real. As stars stretched across the dark sky above the coastline, a quiet truth pulsed through the walls of the retreat. Character is the real currency, and those who carry it will always truly belong. True strength is not loud. It is calm, principled, and steady. Respect can't be bought. It's earned through humility, integrity, and how we treat others when no one's watching. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a tale where character shines brighter than gold. Until next time, walk in dignity and lead with grace.